And I ended up getting thrown at this party that we did in Boston at the Castle, which was across from the Ritz or the Four Seasons, I'm not sure. And I will tell you, Liz, I hated Boston when I was here for that. I absolutely hated it. I didn't like the people. It sucked. I never wanted to come back. And then a girlfriend had me chaperone a high school trip, and I was like, oh, maybe this isn't bad after all. So it's very interesting that I've come this full circle where I would move to Boston in a heartbeat if I had the chance. But back to this, it's really interesting to watch the kids become confident exploring a city that they know no one in or don't have any ties to, and falling madly in love with it. Like, every single kid walks back onto the plane like they're exhausted, they can't wait to go home, but they all have such ties to Boston because the people were nice, the food was great. I could tie certain things to Chicago and make those parallels for them that made it much more comfortable and let them let their guards down and become immersed in the city and fall in love with it.
Awesome. Very well said. Yeah. So I'm going to just shift to a different topic about how do you make time in your schedule for organizing these trips? You take so many of them. So we have a lot of group leaders who say to us, I just don't have the time to lead a trip. What advice would you give them how do you make time yourself?
You have to believe in the trip. I think that, I'm not going to lie, it does take time. And anyone who tells you that it doesn't take time is full of baloney. And that's a nice way to put it. But it is, once you get on that trip and you see how it changes the kids and what it does for the kids, not only educationally, not only like civically and nationalistically, or however you want to say that, but interpersonally and intrapersonally, the kids come back different people. They come back more worldly, more cosmopolitan, more open. And I think that it is my time set this trip up is nothing compared to what they gain out of it. You know, if I have to take my lunch break to send an email out, oh well. Or if I have to have a meeting after school, big freaking deal. Because at the end of the day, I'm not in it for the glory. I'm in it because I know this is what's best for the kid. And any parent who's going to trust me enough to take their kid halfway across the country, I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that happens and give that kid that experience.
Awesome. Well said again. So next question for you. What kind of time frame would you suggest for planning a trip for other group leaders?
I would start 18 to 24 months out. Especially the first one. It's going to take a minute to build the program. You're not going to get 1,000 kids overnight. You know, I think that that's what is discouraging for a lot of first-time group leaders, is that they're so excited about the program and then they don't get the big giant numbers that they want. But it's an unknown quantity. And if you get enough kids, 10 kids, 12 kids, whose parents say, you know what, I gotcha, let's do this, I believe in you, I believe in it, then you've got that foothold, that foundation to make it grow. And it might take 5 years, it might take 10 years, but as long as you're willing to put the time in, and be persistent and be an advocate for the program and clearly believe in it with your heart and your soul, it's all going to work out. But I think that if you start, 18 months is probably the sweet spot. Because you've got enough time to get them on a decent payment plan. 24 months you can spread it out, but it might seem a little too far away. Anything under a year is pushing it for your first one because you're going to be overwhelmed with all of the stuff that you have to do, especially if it's depending on if it's a school-sponsored trip or if you're flying under the radar with the district. how it's happening, but I think that really closer to 18 months is that sweet spot is what I found.
Awesome. And when you say payment plans, it's to, make it affordable for their students, right?
Yeah, because the more manageable you make it for the parents and the more options you give them, the better off they're going to be in relation to, so this $1,600 is a lot of money, but if I can do $100 a month, then that's not so awful. Mm-hmm. But if you think about it in that one lump sum, or you start pushing it into $150, $200 a month, then that starts to become a little overwhelming if parents are struggling, or, if they're going to need to do something extra to get their child on this trip.
Yeah.
And then it becomes overwhelming, and then they kind of are like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen. Maybe next time.
Yeah, good to know. So my next question is pretty connected to what you were just saying, but many group leaders often fear there won't be enough interest for their students. What advice would you give them?
I think that you have to get creative with it, mm-hmm. and you have to find ways to tie the trip into what you're teaching.
Sure.
So when I taught 7th and 8th grade and I was leading the Boston trip, anytime something about Boston would come up, I'm like, and you'll learn about that when you go to Boston with me next year. and it wasn't even a if you go, it's when you go. And the first time we did it, I was teaching 7th and 8th grade, and we were going to DC. And so anytime I talked about government, you get to learn about this when you go to Washington, D.C. for spring break. And this part of the government you'll get to see when we go to Washington, D.C. And so it's constantly being mindful of the location or the destination, finding a way to insert it in a subtle way, not where you're beating them over the head with, well, we're going on the trip, here's the pamphlet, and let's get back to learning, but getting excited about it and finding that way to just seamlessly integrate it into whatever the heck you're talking about.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. It's like subliminal messages.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? I'm an asshole when it comes to this stuff.
So my next question is, how do you address how safety is handled to parents? Because I know that's always a concern for parents thinking about having their students go on your trips.
Sure. So off the bat, I talk about overnight security. We have licensed bonded security guards on duty from 10 to 5. All the kids have my phone number. I tell the parents that. I give the parents my phone number. They know that there is a licensed tour director with us all the time. There's the insurance policy that I talk about. This really helps parents feel more at ease. Mm-hmm. I literally tape my students in their room. Like, I put tape on the door so I know if they try to escape in the middle of the night. And there's a healthy enough fear of making me angry or trying to get one over on me that they don't even mess with it. There was one kid that did, and it was a disaster for him. But so the parents, once you bring all that out, they feel a little bit more comfortable. And typically, certainly with my first meeting, my TC was with me.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of taught that to my TC so she could really speak to it.
Yeah. Okay.
And my TC still comes to some of my meetings with me, but it's a historical thing now. It like goes on its own now, and there's been enough kids. That's the other thing about this is once you get this going and it's historic, they all start to talk and they all start to know what the expectations are, what you can get away with,
So a lot of word of mouth once you get a program started at your school.
Yeah. But I will tell you, the parents feel so much better once they hear about those security guards that night, and that I usually, like that first night, I don't sleep. I kind of patrol the halls because I want to make sure that the security guards do what the security guard's supposed to, and that these kids are in their rooms, not, like, just because they're in their rooms doesn't mean they're not screwing around.
Yeah.
And so I knock on the door, and